The real estate assignment contract is kind of an essential tool in any real estate wholesaler's tool belt. You want mine? It's the same one I've been using for more than 18 years as a wholesaler. Yours free. I'll do you one better. I'll even explain it to you line by line. Let's talk about that. So look, here's the deal. Real estate wholesalers, it's not that complicated. An assignment contract is you assigning a contract to somebody else. They step into your shoes, you get paid a little, but it is an important thing for you to understand some of the nuances of. For that reason, I'm not only going to give you the same assignment contract I've been using for years and years and years and has made me many, many thousands of dollars, but I'm going to hand you a video I made in 2008 walking through this exact same contract. Having said that, the video you're about to see was from 2008, so the audio quality was bad. It was a clunky old Windows laptop. I was on the back porch, so if you'll apologize, the poor audio and visual quality, there's no need for me to remake this video because that's the same video I would make for you today. So if you want to download my assignment contract, go to the website you see on the screen here. Just follow the link, or if you're watching this video on YouTube, you can look in the description. At the very top of the video description, you'll see a link directly to the blog post where you can download this assignment contract for $0. All right. If you aren't even sure what an assignment contract really is, you want to understand kind of the best practices for a wholesaler and how to use it in your real estate business, that is the next 6.5 minutes of the video you're watching right now. If you already understand contract assignments, you don't really need the assignments 101 conversation. Skip ahead about 6.5 minutes and you can proceed to the walkthrough line by line by line. It's simple, but it's important. Thanks, guys. Keep it awesome. And now, JP from 2008 with a clunky laptop on your back porch, I pass the baton to you.
And why don't we just start by defining quickly what an assignment agreement is. Wikipedia says it's the transfer of rights held by one party, the assignor, to another party, the assignee. Now, that's a pretty simple explanation, and it wraps it all up in a nice little nutshell for you, but let me illustrate for you kind of a boilerplate example of how this works in the real day-to-day real estate investing world. So you've got Johnny Q. Wholesaler. He finds a great deal. Sally P. Seller just inherited a house from her dear old recently departed grandmother. She's so darn emotional about the whole thing. She just doesn't want to deal with it. No how, no way. It's just a burden to her and her family to even think about it. So she says, look, Johnny, I know this thing needs a lot of repairs, but I think it'll eventually be worth around $100,000. But I don't care about that. If you can take it off my hands pretty quick here, take it as is and put $40,000 in my pocket, it's yours. So Johnny sizes it up and says, yeah, I see about $20,000 in repairs here, and I got a pretty good idea who I can sell this thing to for a quick profit. So yeah, I can do $40,000 on this. Sold. Now you need to understand, Johnny Wholesaler is a wholesaler, meaning he does not want to rehab this thing and he does not want to have it as a rental property. Johnny's in for the quick nickels, not the slow dimes. So he's going to be quick flipping this puppy, probably to another investor, even more specifically, probably to a rehabber or a landlord. So when it comes down to it, Johnny just as soon not take title to this thing if he doesn't have to. If possible, Johnny's going to find a solid buyer before his closing date. Let's give him 60 days. So he's got 60 days to close with Sally P. Seller, and he wants to find a buyer within those 60 days, someone who can step into his shoes and close in his place. So Johnny hits the streets. He emails his buyers list. He puts out a sign or two, makes a call or two. Before long, he's got a couple of interested investors drooling over this thing, and he quickly settles on quick flipping this thing to Rhonda R. Rehabber. Now Rhonda's plan is to buy this little junker, rehab the heck out of it, and just turn it into a little gem, sell it to a retail buyer within 6 months or so for $100,000. So she wants to make a decent chunk of change on this thing, and she likes the rehabbing game. So when Johnny Q. Wholesaler shows her the $20,000 in work that it needs and says, hey, it's yours for $50,000, she says, sold. So now Johnny's on his way to a quick $10,000 wholesale profit, right? So Johnny says, okay, Rhonda R. Rehabber, I got it under contract for $40,000. We're set to close in another 45 days from now. So let's assign this contract over to you. You step into my shoes as buyer, and as consideration for selling my position in this agreement to you, just pay me an assignment fee of $10,000, which is the difference, obviously. So they agree, they sign her up with an assignment contract like the one I'm about to go through with you, and the deal's done. Now before I go on, let me just say I realize this is a very sanitized, clean version of how a classic wholesale deal works. And any experienced investors out there who are watching this might be inclined to accuse me of painting a really rosy picture of how the whole thing works. The fact is, I've done a lot of deals very much like that. Every deal has its own personality. It has its own unique challenges. Not every deal fits the boilerplate version of what I just described, but many of them do. And I want to keep things simple and just explain the basic mechanics for those who may not know of how this works. So what just happened? Well, long story short, Johnny Q. Wholesaler just sold his interest in a real estate deal. He never owned the property, but rather his signature was on the purchase agreement. He assigned the purchase agreement to Rhonda R. Rehabber, who stepped into his shoes, so to speak. Rhonda R. Rehabber went to closing with Sally P. Seller and paid an assignment fee to Johnny of $10,000. Johnny took his $10,000 and went happily skipping down the street. Now, as I told this story, there's three questions that come to my mind that I think you may be asking yourself. So let me run through some quick answers for those before we jump into this contract. First of all, does my real estate contract have to have and or assigns somewhere in it or on it in order for it to be assignable? And contrary to popular belief, the answer is no. Now, if you don't know what the heck I'm talking about there, don't worry about it. But some people say you have to have the words and or assigns on your original real estate contract in order for it to be assignable. And I said this in another video recently. The fact is, any real estate contract is by its very nature assignable unless it specifically indicates that it's not. So, myth busted. Second question, when should I collect my assignment fee? Well, you know, a lot of people will tell you, a lot of the gurus, in fact, will tell you you should collect your assignment fee right when you assign that contract. But I got to tell you, I don't like that, and here's why. Okay, imagine you're in a situation where you're Johnny Q. Wholesaler and you're explaining to Rhonda Rehabber, okay, you're going to step into my shoes and close on this deal, and you're going to pay me $10,000 right now, and then you're going to go to closing. And then Rhonda says, well, what if something happens and we don't get to go to closing? Well, what about the $10,000 I just paid you? When you've got one of two answers. Either you're going to have to dig in your pockets, pony up and give it back, or you're going to have to break it to Rhonda that, you know, that's too bad. It wasn't your responsibility to see the deal close. She stepped into your shoes and assumed all the risks associated with that, which is legally true. But I tell you, I just don't think that's good business. My preference as a wholesaler has always been and still is to say to Rhonda Rehabber, look, the fact is, I want you to pay me at closing when you buy. Not when you sell this thing, but when you buy, when you pay the seller the $40,000 that's on this contract that you're assuming, then you can pay me my $10,000 at the same time. What that does is it keeps me interested in making sure that that deal closes, because the seller still knows me as a personality, the original person who built rapport and secured this deal with her. I really don't want to step completely out of the picture and, sayonara, so long, now you got to deal with this lady and I'm not even in the picture at all. I just don't feel like it's good for the long-term relationship. So I'm going to put off collecting my money until closing, and I actually put that in my assignment agreement. Question number 3, is this document guaranteed to be the right one for me to use in my area? No, it's not guaranteed. As I said in my disclaimer, you need to check with your local area. You need to ask another local investor, maybe take a look at their agreement or have them look at this, or just run it by your local real estate attorney for an opinion to be as sure as you can be about this. You're welcome to use my assignment contract, but use it at your own risk. Okay? Now, with all that out of the way, let's run through the actual agreement I'm giving you free of charge today. Okay, here we are with my assignment of purchase and sale agreement. And as you can see, this is a pretty simple one-page form. I'm going to bust through it pretty quick. You can download it from the web page I gave you earlier. So let me just run through this. Oh, and I should say I'm recording this on the back porch. This is part 2, and between part 1 and part 2, my daughter came home from school. So to avoid any background noise from her, I came outside, but you might hear a dog barking in the background or something along those lines. Hopefully you won't mind. So this assignment is made, and as you can see, I've kind of got this filled out. The 27th day of August 2008, random date. Mr. Johnny Q. Wholesaler, you'll remember him from the story I just told, and Miss Rhonda R. Rehabber. Whereas, now this is a little bit more legalese, a little bit more formal sounding than some of the agreements I've used before, but I think it'll still be pretty easy to understand. And I don't know why the heck they use whereas all the time in these contracts, but they just do. Whereas a signor has entered into a certain real estate purchase and sale agreement with Sally Seller. This was the original seller of the property, the person who I, as the wholesaler, had my original contract with. Sally Seller was the seller, and a signor, which is me, right? A signor, I'm the wholesaler, so I'm the assignor. A signor as buyer, which agreement was dated on, and this is of course the date of that contract, not today's date, but the date of that contract, by a signor and said seller for the purchase and sale of certain real property lying and situate in, and of course you put your county name here and your state right here, and more particularly described in said agreement. Copy of said agreement being attached hereto as Exhibit A. Hereto, what a great word. So basically, your real estate contract becomes an attachment to this assignment, Exhibit A. Whereas a signor, that's me the wholesaler, desires to assign, transfer, and sell and convey to assignee all of my rights, title, and interest in, to and under said real estate purchase and sale agreement. And whereas the assignee, the investor I'm flipping this thing to, desires to receive all of my rights, title, and interest in and under the real estate contract. Now therefore, and in consideration of the sum of, let me just get rid of that, I hate those things. Now this is going to be your consideration as the wholesaler that you're going to receive. Basically this is your assignment fee. So in this pretend transaction I'm receiving $10,000. If you remember from my story, I had a contract on it for $40,000 and Rhonda Rehabber agreed to buy it for $50,000. The difference is $10,000, so that's my assignment fee here. And other good and valuable considerations. That's just legal contract mumbo jumbo. The sufficiency of which is hereby acknowledged. A signor has assigned, transferred, and sold and conveyed, and by these presents does hereby assign, transfer, sell, and convey, good grief, unto assignee all of a signor's rights, title, interest to, and under the real estate purchase agreement. So this is basically saying I'm giving them all that I had as a person on this contract. Any rights I had, any ups, downs, positives, and negatives that I was entitled to as a signer on this contract, I am turning over to Rhonda Rehabber. I also agree to receive, and Rhonda Rehabber agrees to pay in full, the assignment consideration that we mentioned up here on or before the closing date of the real estate purchase and sale agreement attached. Now you remember I said I actually added this in myself because I don't think it's really fair for everyone for me to try and get paid right away when we might be 2 weeks away from closing, and I just kind of say, okay, see you sayonara to Rhonda Rehabber and Sally Seller. So I take my assignment fee when Rhonda Rehabber closes on her purchase, her acquisition of this property. This assignment shall be binding upon assigner and shall inure to the benefit of assignee and his successors, heirs, and assigns. Assignee hereby assumes all of assignor's duties and obligations required by assignor under the said agreement and agrees to defend, indemnify, and hold assigner harmless from any liability or obligation under the agreement. Okay, so basically this is saying that when the assignee takes my place in this contract, he or she, in this case she, Rhonda Rehabber, is agreeing to hold me harmless from any liability or obligation under this contract. I was told at one point that without a clause like this in my assignment agreement, then technically the person I'm assigning this contract to could come back to me and have some grounds for coming back to me and holding me accountable if something goes awry in the contract between the original seller and the new buyer. Of course, I don't want that to be the case. As far as I'm concerned, I'm gonna stay there and help things along, help nurse things along, but I don't want to have any legal liability remaining over my head in this process. So that's an important clause to understand why it's there and to leave it in there. Assignee, that's Rhonda, further agrees to hold assignor, me, harmless from any deficiency or defect in the legality or enforceability of the terms of the agreement. Same thing there. So this is saying, look, you're stepping into my shoes not just for the profit, not just for the property, but also for the liability. Assignee agrees and understands that I am not acting as a real estate broker or an agent in this transaction, and I'm not representing either party, but rather acting as a principal in selling my interest in the above referenced agreement to you, Rhonda. Of course, I'm paraphrasing a little there, but I'm trying to make it crystal clear. Now, I added this in once I became licensed as a real estate agent here in Tennessee in 2004, because I wanted it to be crystal clear that I am not representing anyone here as an agent, that this is me. Them thinking that the money I'm receiving, the 10K up there, is a real estate commission. Time is of the essence in this agreement. This is a good thing to have in your contracts in general. It helps make the time frame, any time frame that's mentioned, enforceable. And a signee is in possession of the original agreement. This is basically saying, Rhonda, I'm giving you the original contract. Now, I will keep a copy in my files, so I have a record of it, but I'm going to go ahead and give her the original blue ink signature version. And then, of course, you got signed signatures and dates from both parties, and that's it. It's a simple one-page agreement. Again, I know it's a little more legalese than some of the other agreements I've gone through before, but it's still pretty darn easy done for many years. Feel free to use it in your own business. Use it at your own risk, but use it to your heart's content. Feel free to tweak it. I do suggest you get it run by a local professional and see if there's any tweaking that needs to happen on your end.